Man, have you ever trusted a firearm to have your back when things go sideways, only to have it let you down in the worst possible way? Today we're looking at weapons that seemed dependable until they fell apart when folks needed them most. Some of these malfunctions are so outrageous, they'd be funny if they weren't so life-threatening. You're about to see some of the biggest letdowns from gun makers you probably thought were bulletproof. Number 10. Winchester XPR. This bolt-action platform was Winchester's shot at a budget-friendly hunting rifle for the modern outdoorsman. It featured a redesigned trigger group meant to boost field precision, but in October of 2015, the company had to issue a recall. Turns out, some safety mechanisms were faulty. Engaging the safety could actually move internal trigger parts. In some cases, rifles discharge when the safety was engaged or disengaged. That's the exact opposite of what a safety is supposed to do. The malfunction was tied to interference between the safety, sear, and other vital trigger components. Winchester flat out told owners not to load or fire their rifles until they'd been sent in for service. They offered a free retrofit that replaced parts in the trigger group. A safety that causes a gun to fire? That's a catastrophic failure. Number 9. FN502 Tactical. FN is a name that carries weight in both the civilian and military firearms world. So when they launched the FN502 Tactical chambered in .22 long rifle, people expected a solid training pistol with duty-style features. But in January of 2022, things went south. FN discovered some pistols had missing or defective manual safety levers, meaning they could fire even when switched to safe. Working alongside Umarex, their production partner, they found more issues. Some levers were incorrectly installed at the factory. Either way, the safeties weren't functioning as intended. That's a big deal when you're trusting a safety to block the fire control system. Serial numbers below LR010300 were affected, and FN told customers to send their pistols in for repair or full replacement free of charge. Just goes to show what can go wrong when you outsource critical manufacturing steps. Number 8. Colt CBX. Bolt-action rifles. Colt CBX lineup, including the Precision and TAC Hunter variants, was meant to be their entry into modern long-range bolt-action rifles. Big name, big expectations. But as of May 2025, all CBX models were under recall for a critical safety flaw. Here's the issue. If you pull the trigger while the safety is engaged, the gun doesn't fire, which is normal. But the moment you flip the safety to fire, boom, the rifle goes off without touching the trigger again. That's a massive liability in any hunting or range situation. The issue lies in how the trigger mechanism resets once the safety is disengaged. Colt's recall advised all owners to cease use immediately due to risk of serious injury or death. And because they discontinued the CBX rifle line entirely, they offered full refunds or a replacement revolver instead. That's how severe the problem was. Easier to scrap the whole product line than try to fix it. A safety that sets off the shot? Unforgivable. Number 7. Colt MSR Series various models. Colt's modern sporting rifles, based on the AR-15 platform, are usually seen as rock solid. But in November of 2021, they hit a serious snag. A recall was issued for rifles made from March 5th of that year onward, including several AR-15A4 and CR6-920 variants. The culprit? Badly manufactured hammers. Some were out of spec and could cause the rifle to fire again when the trigger was released, as long as another round was chambered. That's an extremely dangerous failure that mimics an unintended binary trigger effect. Whether the problem came from Colt's own production line or an outside supplier, the result was the same hammers that weren't catching on the disconnector as they should. That created serious risk of unintentional double fires. Colt urged all owners to stop using affected rifles immediately, check their serial numbers, and send them in for a free hammer replacement. Just another example that even the biggest names can mess up critical components. Number 6. Remington R51. Man, where do we even begin with this one? Back in 2014, Remington tried to revive the spirit of the classic Pedersen Model 51 by releasing a modernized concealed carry pistol chambered in 9mm. On paper, it sounded like a hit. In practice, total meltdown. The first generation R51 suffered from just about every malfunction you could imagine. It wouldn't feed properly, rounds failed to extract or eject, and stovepipes were common. Slides wouldn't return to battery. Magazines dropped unexpectedly. Pins worked themselves out, and the sights wobbled straight from the factory. The action felt gritty, like it was filled with crushed gravel. Worst of all, there were reports of the pistol firing out of battery, which is a recipe for catastrophic failure and potential injury. According to Remington, the problem stemmed from moving too quickly from prototype to full-scale production. They simply couldn't build them right in large quantities. Insider reports even claimed engineers knew the design wasn't ready. Unsurprisingly, the R51 was pulled from shelves and recalled. 2 years later, in 2016, the second-generation versions launched with a few upgrades. They did manage to address the out-of-battery issue, but even then, reliability problems, especially with the magazines, continued to haunt the design. In the end, it was a public relations disaster that badly damaged Remington's reputation. A painful lesson in what happens when you release a gun before it's truly ready. Number 5. Ruger Mark IV. Released in 2016, the Mark IV was Ruger's next step in their iconic .22 long rifle pistol line. One of its biggest selling points was the simplified takedown, a single button system that made disassembly way easier than the older Mark III models. It came in a variety of flavors, from the Target variant to the .22-45. But in June of 2017, Ruger had to announce a wide-reaching recall for all units manufactured before June 1st of that year. Why? The manual safety system had a critical flaw. If the trigger was pulled while the safety was caught halfway between safe and fire, the pistol might not go off right away. But once the shooter moved the safety fully into the fire position, the gun could discharge without the trigger being pulled again. That's a serious malfunction rooted in how the sear and trigger bar engaged with the safety components. Even if only a small batch was affected, the potential danger of an unintentional discharge when manipulating the safety was unacceptable. Ruger responded by offering a free retrofit with an improved safety mechanism, plus a complimentary magazine as a goodwill gesture. Repaired units were marked with a small S inside the safety selector for verification. For a gun with such a loyal fan base, this was a rare stumble. Number 4. Ruger American Pistol in 9mm. Ruger launched the American Pistol line as a polymer frame, striker-fired platform aimed at law enforcement, personal defense, and serious use. And for the most part, it earned respect for being tough and dependable. But in October of 2018, Ruger issued a product safety bulletin regarding some of their 9mm models. The issue involved premature wear on the slide and barrel locking surfaces. Over time, especially around the 10,000 round mark, excessive wear could lead to cracking near the ejection port. For a firearm designed for hard use, that's a deal breaker. These weren't just cosmetic flaws. Slide integrity was at stake. The problem seemed to boil down to either materials not being up to spec or a flaw in the locking system designed for certain serial batches. Affected pistols were mostly those with serial number prefixes 860 and 862 and silver-colored barrels. Ruger offered free inspections and replaced damaged parts with upgraded components, including barrels with a black nitride finish. Any pistol meant to serve duty or defense roles shouldn't have structural failures after a few cases of ammo. Number 3. Smith & Wesson M and Shield EZs. The Shield EZ series from Smith & Wesson was made to be ultra-accessible. Lighter recoil springs, easy racking slides, and smooth triggers for people who struggle with traditional semi-autos. It was widely praised and marketed toward seniors, newer shooters, and folks with reduced hand strength. But in November of 2020, the company issued a serious safety recall for certain pistols manufactured between March and October of that year. The problem? Faulty hammers from a supplier ones with micro cracks. These cracks could cause the hammer to fail to properly engage the sear. That meant the pistol could unintentionally fire during slide closure, such as when chambering a round. Even worse, there were rare cases where the gun would fire multiple shots with a single trigger pull, basically mimicking automatic fire. Even with the thumb safety engaged, if the grip safety was depressed, the malfunction could still occur. Smith & Wesson took full responsibility, offering to inspect and replace defective hammers at no cost. They urged all owners to check serial numbers and send in affected pistols. A trusted brand, shaken by a supplier's failure. This incident reminded us how even reliable designs can be compromised by bad parts from the supply chain. Number 2. Sig Sauer Pre65. When the P365 hit the market back in 2018, it turned heads instantly. A micro-compact pistol that could carry 10 or 12 rounds of 9mm. That was a revolution in everyday carry, but while the hype was real, the early models, let's just say they had more problems than a math test. Right out of the gate, owners began experiencing serious reliability issues. Striker assemblies were breaking, especially if you dry fired without snap caps. Spent casings weren't ejecting cleanly, new rounds failed to chamber, and slides sometimes refused to lock back after the last shot. On top of that, triggers would occasionally go dead or deliver weak primer strikes. And if that weren't enough, the night sights? Some were defective, either not glowing at all or breaking during normal use. These were not minor annoyances. They were critical failures in a pistol designed for self-defense. The root of it seemed to be a mix of flawed striker design, bad metallurgy, and tight tolerances in extractors, magazines, and feed ramps. Early spring tension setups may have also played a part. Sig Sauer didn't issue a formal recall, but they quietly addressed these flaws through updated parts and redesigned internals in later production batches. Replacement strikers, improved springs, and upgraded QC made newer models far more reliable. Still, those first runs left a mark and reminded everyone that even groundbreaking designs can stumble out of the gate. Number 1. Sig Sauer P320. Here it is, the most infamous case in recent memory. The P320 took the firearms world by storm. A modular striker-fired handgun with a serialized fire control group that could be dropped into different grip frames and slide assemblies. It was cutting edge. The U.S. Army even adopted it as the M17 and 18. This was supposed to be Sig Sauer's crown jewel. But then came the nightmare scenario: drop fires. Early P320 pistols could discharge if dropped at just the wrong angle, usually backward, landing on the rear of the slide. That is a fundamental failure for any service-grade sidearm. Videos began to circulate showing the issue in slow motion, and the pressure mounted fast. In response, Sig launched a voluntary upgrade program in August of 2017. They introduced lighter trigger components, redesigned disconnectors, and internal changes to reduce inertia-related discharge risk. Despite that, reports of unintentional discharges continued. Some even caused injuries, leading to lawsuits and police departments suspending use of the platform. The root problem was traced to the pistol's fully cocked striker system and the mass of the original trigger. In the right conditions, a sharp impact could make it fire without a trigger pull. Critics argued the internal safety design wasn't up to modern expectations, especially since the P320 has no manual safety on most variants. Sig Sauer stood by the design, claiming it passed all standard drop tests, but trust had been shaken. For a firearm that won massive military contracts, this situation was a disaster and a stark reminder of how vital internal safeties and trigger geometry are, especially in striker-fired guns meant to be carried hot. And there you have it, 10 real-world reminders that even the biggest names in the industry can drop the ball in major ways. Some of these issues were fixed. Others became permanent cautionary tales. Whether you're carrying for defense or collecting for passion, reliability is everything. If you found this breakdown helpful or just morbidly fascinating, smash that like button and subscribe to Gun Fanatics for more no-nonsense content. We're all about honest talk, real reviews, and keeping you informed. Until next time, stay sharp, stay trained, and as always, make sure every trigger pull starts with the right choice.